Hey folks, Pat here from DNS. This Madison area fishing report is current as of September 8th. A lot of stuff to talk about here, so let's just get right into it. A couple things to cover. Austin Rogotsky, very talented local angler. He spoke here at the shop for our seminars, was fishing the National Walleye Tour, was out the first day, had kind of a rough day. Yesterday, it looks like he had a bit of a comeback. Wasn't quite enough to get him into the top 10. Looks like he finished here at 18th, so he's in the money, but didn't make the top 10 to finish and fish today, but that's super respectable finish for somebody who never fished Devil's Lake before in his life, and so this was his debut, I believe, at the championship. So congratulations to him on a great finish in my eyes, anyway. And good luck to the top 10. John Hoyer, geez, caught 30 pounds of walleye in a 5-fish bag the first day. Second day, yesterday, came in with 39 pounds of walleyes, so over 39 pounds. So, geez, just slow down there a little bit, John. But yeah, anyway, good luck to the top 10 there, and great job to Austin. The DNR came out. They kind of quietly release these trout surveys after they survey different watersheds. They'll publish the surveys because they take a while to produce all or process all the information. Anyway, they just published some. You can scroll down here on their page to Dane County. They have a couple they released here just the other day. West Branch of the Sugar River and the Sugar River itself, the watersheds. So, if you really want to nerd out about trout information, you can look this stuff up. I enjoy poring over this stuff because, it's a lot of stuff to wade through, but you really can find some little tidbits that'll give you some inspiration to fish. They got all the information. They talk about the watershed. They talk about specific creeks that they surveyed. They do a general discussion. Then they get into some stats and stuff, management plans for the area. But then they got some charts down here at the end, a whole bunch of maps, and then some charts here. Geez, look at Story Creek. Not far from Madison, just full of fish. And I've seen this in a few different reports from the DNR. They send these out. Oh, this creek is absolutely full of fish. Well, that's super nice, but I don't know if you fish Story. I have many times. Super hard to fish. So a lot of brush you got to wade through, whack through. A lot of overhanging cover, but it is a great cold water resource, very close to Madison, and is apparently full of trout. So get down there. It sounds like the brook trout have kind of dissipated, and the brown trout are taking over, which I guess personally I'm not a super big fan of, but it is cool to see this information, and it's a great resource the DNR puts out. So thanks to them for doing that. One other quick thing here. I had a guy hit me up on Facebook Messenger, Ron Marcus, sent me this video of some white bass schooled up off the Monona Terrace and busting minnows on the top. Got a boat here of some anglers tossing in there. I think Ron said they didn't catch anything, or he didn't see them catch anything anyway. But yeah, super cool to see all these fish just herding these minnows. I'm not sure if it's just a reflection or if this is actually the massive. It looks like the massive fish in here has got all the minnows kind of schooled up there, and they're just going to town on them. So that's a cool video, and I want to thank Ron for sending that our way. Just a couple little quick shop things. With fall coming on, the fish are looking for a little bigger meal. We got some bigger minnows in now, so the extra large fatheads super popular with walleye folks. We got the blacktail chubs, suckers, walleye, pike, bass, all kinds of fish like those. Musky guys, come on in. Got big suckers in. I got them in a range anywhere from like 6 inches up to, there's a couple in there that are 12, 14 inches. So yeah, it's going to be that time of year, and the fish getting their feed bag on. Also, I had someone in the shop looking at hats, and they said, "Hey, do you sell the patches?" I said, "No, but I could put them out." So I did. Small patches and large patches if you want to put them on your punk rock jacket or something. I'm not sure what you do with them, but anyway, yeah, got patches if you want to swing by and grab one. I will get to the report. The weather around town has been great. After the heat finally broke out, moved out, cooled things down nicely. Looks like a gorgeous weekend with temps in the 70s and a chance for some much needed rain early next week. So we'll see if that actually appears. The Mendota buoy, which usually sits out here off Picnic Point, I've been down the last couple weeks. I wound up calling the folks in the limnology department at the UW to try to get some answers. Turns out the line that goes all the way to the bottom and records temps at the different depths has broken. The problem is it's an expensive and difficult part to replace. So unfortunately, the buoy sounds like it's going to be down the rest of the year. They should have it back up and running next spring. The gentleman I spoke to did point me towards a couple other resources here, and I'll try to remember to post these links below here. In, but they do have a thing that records surface temp. So right now on Lake Mendota, it's 73 degrees out there. And then, I was digging around a little bit, and USGS, which, I usually use for river flow levels, also has a recorder on Lake Monona, which I didn't know about until yesterday. And looks like that's running at 69.8 degrees. But yeah, you can just type in USGS Lake Monona, and that'll come up. There are gauge height things on some of the other lakes, but this one has a temperature gauge, so that's nice to see. So I'll try to keep you posted with that information until the buoy gets back up in the spring. Generally around the chain, between the heat and kids going back to schools, we didn't have a ton of folks coming through the door, but folks are definitely still out there getting fish. Sounds like floating weeds are causing problems depending on wind and where you're at. The Dane County Beach Water Quality site here has kind of mixed reviews. It looks like maybe half the beaches now are closed with bad water quality. That's really, I think, a function of the intense kind of heat we had and no rain, and that's ripe conditions for blue-green algae blooms. But, around the shop, I haven't really heard much in the way of complaints as far as water clarity goes. Otherwise, around the chain, gills are being found on weed lines on Mendota and suspended over deep water pretty much everywhere else, with redworms and spikes working well for those fish. Perch action remains spotty on Mendota and everywhere else. Largemouth bass are being found shallow around the chain, and smallmouth bass and walleye are being picked up in good numbers on shoreline breaks and mid-lake humps, with crawlers and fathead minnows working well for those fish. Pike are plentiful, and it sounds like the muskie action's picked up a little bit with this cooler weather we have. Area streams are running a bit low and clear, but the cooler temps have the trout in a good mood. And local rivers are also running low right now as well. Up here at Cherokee, I drove by there again the other day, just checking out the weed situation, and it's looking a little bit better. It seems like the weeds are starting to get knocked back a little bit, so still a weedy mess for sure, but definitely a couple more opportunities, especially if you're fishing topwater frogs. Otherwise, if you got a small boat or canoe or kayak, you can put in here at the school road launch, get out into the channel out here and fish some of the weed beds out there. Folks have been doing well there all summer for pike and bass. Over to the 113 bridge, usual mixed bag. You always hear about some random fish being caught there, but catfish is really the name of the game, and folks are still getting some real nice fish with stink bait and crawlers being most popular. But as we move into fall here, that'll kind of switch back to cut bait. It'll become real popular out there too. So in late summer, usually people are out here chasing perch on Mendota. I occasionally do hear good reports of perch, but it's really just a numbers game. A lot of those fish are being small, with a few keepers mixed in there, but they're still pretty elusive. A few folks are getting larger perch if you can punch through the weeds or find small pockets. The good news is the gills are keeping folks busy on weed lines, with a few of those Mendota dinner plate jumbos showing up. I do encourage folks to release those giants to help preserve the fishery, but they are getting some good action out there on bluegills. Crappies here and there, but for most part, those fish are scattered at best. All the panfish are liking redworms on a little ice fishing or small jig or waxworm on, with a plastic or something has been working well. I do hear about the occasional smallmouth bass or walleye grabbing those jigs, but really anywhere around the lake where you can find a good weed line, you'll likely find some fish. Also hearing about some bluegills showing up on mid-lake humps, but the mid-lake humps have been dominated by walleye and smallmouth bass all summer, and they'll remain there until things get cooled down here a little bit more in the fall. Then they'll start to move up shallow. Walleye fishing around town or on Mendota has picked up a bit, with fish being caught in the 15 to 25 foot range near shoreline breaks and mid-lake humps. Fatheads and blacktail chubs have been working well, but the walleye folks are also trolling. Crawlers and crankbaits are still getting fish as well. I do hear about a few big catfish mixing things up for folks, both from shore and folks jigging and running crawlers and stuff out in 20 feet of water. So that can be exciting. Down here to Tenney Park, it sounds like folks are still getting a nice mixed bag of fish down there. Walleyes at dusk and dawn. Below the locks there, water's still coming through there pretty good. Getting some bluegills and some good walleye action down there, actually. And a lot of small bluegills in the Tenney Park Lagoon, with some nice largemouth coming out of there occasionally, too. Over on Lake Monona, Not much happening on the weed lines that I hear about, but of course I do hear a lot about bluegills out deep. So anywhere over deep water, anywhere from say 30 feet to 60, 70 feet, you're going to find those fish about 15 feet down. So just drifting around is probably the most effective way to find them. Well, of course, electronics help, but really you don't need them. You just hang a pole over the side of the side of your boat and hold on, and you'll eventually bump into a school. Monona Bay, crappies, bluegills, pike, bass, nice mixed bag down there. The Monona Terrace Wall has been producing good bluegill action, although you got to sort through a lot of those fish to find keepers. And a good crappie bite continues. Sounds like it's getting better over there, and that'll just continue to get better as we go into fall. Lake Winger, a lot of small gills, and some nice bass in there, and of course muskies. I don't hear a ton about muskies on Monona, but I have heard that with this recent cold snap, a couple nicer fish being picked up. Down the chain here, down to Lake Wabisa. Upper Mud is still weedy over there, but folks are getting bass on topwater. Frogs have been working well. Lake Wabisa has, a good largemouth bass bite, shallow. Gills aren't really being, you can find a few on weed lines, but most of those fish are being found out over deep water, suspended again, 10 to or 15 feet down or so. Weeds are also a little bit of a problem over there, depending on what side of the lake you're on and what the wind's doing. I have heard about a few walleyes coming out of the Babcock Park down to Lake or Bible Camp area, so that's still happening. I haven't heard a ton out of Kegonsa. A few walleyes here and there in the state park along the state park area. Otherwise, gills also there, suspended 15 feet down, out over deep water. Not much happening on the weed lines, unless you can find a really deep weed line out there. But yeah, haven't heard much else on the way of Kegonsa. All right, and it sounds like down the way here down to Koshkonong, I haven't heard much out of there. It sounds like the blue-green algae's been causing some troubles down there, poor visibility, but I do hear about occasional white bass and crappie bite down there. Otherwise, yeah, it's been pretty slow. Decent action at the Indian Ford and Jefferson dams. Some nice mixed bag of fish, per usual for the summer, but some nice flathead catfish coming out of there too, from what I hear. Up the way here to Beaver Dam, still that good eater catfish bite going on over there. Got yellow bass in Crystal Lake. Devil's Lake sounds like some decent trout action, although those fish are a little deeper right now. But I also have heard about some nice gills along the shore. So that's a great opportunity to get over there and check something else out new. It's such a pretty place there at Devil's Lake. Otherwise, on the Wisconsin River, water levels are still low. But now that we're into September, it's actually pretty close to their seasonal averages for this time of year. One thing about the low water is, of course, it concentrates fish in deeper holes, making them easier to find. So all up and down the river, you're going to want to look at places like backsides of sandbars, inside or outside bends and corners to find some of that deeper water. But you'll find smallmouth out there busting schools of shad. There's a lot of shad in the river right now. So and tossing any minnow imitation right into that chaos can make for some real exciting fishing. But also, don't ignore the shoreline, topwater frogs. There's fish that hang out near those banks and, are waiting for something to plop in the water. Otherwise, up the river here at the dam, Prairie du Sac Dam, nice mixed bag of fish coming out of there. Of course, we got sturgeon season in full effect. I know a lot of people like to fish this stretch of the river for sturgeon. And I have heard about some nice fish being caught. Lake Wisconsin, I've been hearing about some nice catches up there, but not a lot of what people are looking for. A lot of sheep's head, white bass, catfish. The walleye sound like they're on the small side. Panfish bite's been pretty good from what I hear. Near structure, wood, and stuff like that. It's a good crappie bite. Portage up to the Dells. Great smallmouth water in there. Again, busting schools of shad. It's a great opportunity there. Castle Rock Dam and Petenwell dams have both been producing a bunch of fish. As usual, nice mixed bag, although I haven't heard a lot out of Castle Rock as far as walleye go. A few being picked up on Petenwell. And, the panfish bite over there for wood also sounds like in wood has also been pretty great. Otherwise, it sounds like over here to the Mississippi, folks are getting some good panfish, some perch, bluegills, crappies on weed lines, and it sounds like the walleye bite and smallmouth bass have been good on wing dams. Smallmouth bass being picked up on topwater poppers have been real effective. Over to Milwaukee, so things are finally starting to change over here. The rivers are still running low. I think folks are still getting a few smallmouth and stuff in little pockets, but that's not going to last long because the salmon have started to move into the harbors over here all up and down the East Coast. You'll find them moving in there. I've heard Paul Zock was in here yesterday, got some fish up to Sheboygan. There's fish in at Port Washington and in the Milwaukee Harbor and Racine, all the way up and down the coast here. So that's a start of an exciting time of year. Shore anglers can access some of those, very large fish. And then they're going to start pushing up the river here. I actually did hear one report of someone that got a fish in the river this last week. So, won't be long, and we'll be talking about salmon going up the rivers, and it's a great time of year. Otherwise, around Madison here, I guess I'm going to try to do this. I really want to try to remember. Where's Madison? Okay. I'm going to try to remember to do this Happy Flyday thing. So, try to do a timely report on what fish are biting on. The fly of the week here is a Skippy hopper, and it is a great little hopper. It's got a little deer hair on there, a little foam, some legs. It's everything you need. It checks all the boxes as far as the trout fly goes. This is trout season. Hoppers are hopping, and trout are looking up for them. So this is a great fly. My son was using this 2 weekends ago and did very well. So it's a great little pattern. And all your local streams, though, around the area are back to their seasonal flows, are a little on the low side. Sporadic catches of mayflies and caddisflies are coming off, but in the early morning or evening, but we're full on into hopper season. So stop by the shop, grab some hoppers, and get out there. It's not to say that crickets, ants, and beetles aren't also on the trout's menu, but really hoppers are a super fun way to catch trout. Of course, woolly buggers and nymphs are effective anytime you're maybe in some deeper water or fish aren't looking up. On the spinning gear side of things, panther martins, tube jigs, and rapalas are fantastic. And on the live bait side of things, it's hard to beat a redworm under a bobber. So anyway, I guess that's it for the report. Feel free to call the shop, 241-4225, if you have any questions or want us to expand on anything here. Otherwise, appreciate you all tuning in. Post your comments and catches below, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much.